Welcome back to The Mystery with Jensen and Marley. Like and follow our podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and text or email who you think did it to jensen@jensenday.com. And remember, do not reveal the mystery. Enjoy! It was a foggy, warm Sunday morning as the sun rose over the Black Ridge Correctional Facility. In less than an hour, the news would spread throughout the prison that Jack Martin, cold-blooded killer who had been locked up for over a decade, had escaped. In less than 2 hours, there would be police search parties out looking for him, and in less than 3, it would make national news that would ignite fear in not only the city of Denver, but the entire country. Martin had been arrested 13 years ago for killing a local politician and his wife and kids in their home. The trial lasted over 2 years before Martin accepted a plea deal. He pled guilty but never explained why he killed them. Now, the middle-aged man had mysteriously escaped the highest security prison in Colorado. As much as the police and media tried to ease the public concern, there was no doubt that people were scared. And everyone, including the staff at Black Ridge, was wondering how he got out and where he would go next. The police and warden questioned several prisoners on what they knew about Martin's escape. They especially wanted to talk to Gary Aldridge, who was considered Jack's closest friend at Black Ridge. Gary had to have known Jack's plan to escape and likely might have helped him execute it. The warden, Roy Russell, told Gary that if he would admit how Martin did it and what he knew about where he was headed, that he would not be punished for helping him. But Gary did not budge. He insisted that he did not know Martin's plan to escape and that he himself was not happy about it either. They essentially got the same response from all of the other prisoners, except that most of them were happy with his absence. Jack was not well liked by his fellow prisoners, and Gary was the only one he seemed to get along with at all. Warden Russell described Gary and Jack as the mean girls in high school, well known but not well liked. They were friends with each other and no one else, which further added to the confusion of how Gary could have really been that clueless about Jack's plan to escape. Nearly a week passed before any trace of Martin had been discovered. But Friday evening, an officer from a town outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, contacted Chief Stevens of the Denver PD with a tip from one of their community citizens that a man of similar build and height to Martin had been seen wandering around the entrance of a state park. The Denver PD had been getting several similar types of tips a day, but this one really piqued their interest because the individual was able to capture a faraway picture of the man and several things stood out to them. The man was wearing sweatpants and a hoodie outside in the middle of July. He had on 2 different shoes, and most interesting of all, he wore headphones. Why is that so interesting, you may be thinking? Because Jack Martin was born with a very distinctive birthmark. The top of his left ear folded inward, and disguising that would likely be a priority to the criminal. This was the first decent tip the police had gotten, and they had no other leads anyways, so they had to follow it. Officers from the Salt Lake City area and Denver were on high alert for the man in the picture. They did a search at the park he was spotted at and several other surrounding areas. They called every media and electronics store in between Denver and Salt Lake to see who had bought the headphones he was wearing within the past week. But they had no luck. There had been no more sightings of the man, and they doubted he was even still in the area. Meanwhile, back at Black Ridge, Warden Russell was keeping Gary up to date on Jack's investigation while still questioning what he knew. The warden's tactics were not helpful, however. Gary still claimed he did not know anything about how or why Jack escaped. This frustrated both the warden and the police. Without information from other prisoners at Black Ridge, they essentially had nothing to go off of. Days passed with no progress, no leads, and no spotting of Jack Martin. Warden Russell was especially getting frustrated because he felt a responsibility for whatever Jack may do while on the outside. He was hardly sleeping and spent most of his waking hours trying to figure out not only how he escaped, but where he was going. They had searched Jack's mail he received, But their system of keeping track of prisoners' mail was not the most organized. One evening, the warden decided to go back through what they had on Jack's belongings, and he caught something odd in their records. Less than 3 weeks before Jack's escape, he had received a package from an unfamiliar mailing address. Listed in the contents was an antique children's tea set and a pair of headphones. Warden Russell's mind immediately went to the headphones worn by the man spotted near Salt Lake City, but he was more intrigued by the tea set. Who would be sending a grown man a children's tea set? There was no name listed under the sender, just an address located in St. Louis, Missouri. The warden picked up the phone to call Chief Stevens to tell him what he discovered, when suddenly the prison went dark and the phone rang out a dial tone. To be continued. Thanks for listening to The Mystery with Jensen and Marley. Like and follow our podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and text or email who you think did it to jensen@jensenday.com. And remember, do not reveal the mystery. Bye!